Hi there, Jack Howarth and Craig Howarth here from Corby Tennis Centre. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the grass season for 2019. So usually in grass court tennis there are some big differences, especially moving from the French Open, which is played on the clay. Clay is usually thought of as the slowest surface that the major tournaments are played on, and grass is one of the quickest. Probably not as quick as it was 10 to 15 years ago. They actually slowed the courts down at Wimbledon, and there was kind of a ruckus over that because the courts play a bit more like hard courts now. They play like fast hard courts, especially when the weather's really dry. Dad has just picked up on the weather for this year. It's been quite rainy, so there could be some differences in how the courts play.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that'll make a big difference in terms of some of the really tall guys. There's a lot of the players now are 6'3" and above, and because the courts, I think they'll be playing a little bit softer this year. The ball will probably bounce lower, and so that could affect them quite a lot. And the big guys, they like the ball nice and fast, but they like it high and fast. And as Jack's already referred to, when it is really hot, the grass tends to play like a really fast hard court.
So it's also worth mentioning that the weather is going to change how the courts feel underfoot as well. Grass is already quite a slippery surface, and you tend to get people falling over during matches, especially in the early rounds, just because the grass is that extra bit lush. If you're watching Wimbledon, towards the second week you'll start to see big brown patches on the court. They used to be around the service line area a lot more, but now they're back towards the baseline, and that actually makes it easier to stand up, in contrast to these early tournaments that are going on now, where you see a lot of people slipping, and that's despite grass court shoes, which are made specifically with little pimples on the bottom to help people not fall over and to help them keep their balance a little bit better. The weather is going to make that even worse, so we're going to get lots of slipping around, so be prepared to see some players on their bums in their matches.
So the sort of player that I actually think will do quite well at Wimbledon, and fingers crossed that he does, he's somebody like our British Dan Evans. He's had two really good warm-up tournaments. He's won back-to-back challenges for the first time. He's relatively quite short, I think in about 5'8", 5'9". Good, really nice footwork. And as I say, he's had the big advantage of having had quite a bit of play on the grass, whereas because of the weather in this build-up period, very few of the top players will actually have even been able to practice on the grass very much, whereas Dan's had some practice and been able to get some matches under his belt as well. And I also think it will probably be a big advantage to somebody like Federer, because of the way that he moves, and he just has this beautiful way of gliding around the court. I actually think that he will keep his feet probably much better than some of the other guys.
I thought bringing up Evans and Federer, actually, they both have the kind of game style that usually does well on grass. Obviously Federer's won Wimbledon a bunch of times, but Evans has similarities there as well. They both use the slice backhand well, and that stays really low. Federer in particular hits the spots on his serve incredibly well, probably the best of any server at the moment, perhaps with the exception of someone like Isner or Karlovic, who really dominate at the serving end. But it's tough to beat Federer on that, and actually because it has been raining, it makes those courts a little bit quicker, so you actually have to do less of the work yourself with your serve. If you can hit the spots, the courts will do the work for you. So someone who serves a bit more like Federer with less pace but more accuracy is probably going to do even better than usual, which is saying something for Federer. But hopefully for someone like Dan Evans, who hasn't quite got the firepower of some of the other guys, but potentially does have good accuracy and uses his slice well, the guys that like to come into the net, the volleys are going to be really tough to deal with, because the grass is again going to keep them low, especially the short volleys. You probably see a lot more drop volleys and just short dumpy volleys used much more in the grass court season than on the other courts, where they tend to stand up more.
So why do you think they'll bring those volleys into play?
Well, they stay low, and it's very difficult to get as much pace on a low ball, because you have to get it up before it comes back down again. So all the racket head speed will have to go into spin instead of power. On other courts where the volleys will stand up a bit more, guys can take full swings, and they don't have that same angle to try and get over the net and bring it back down again. So not only will the grass keep it low and short, so it'll make that up and down more difficult. Because it shoots through, it also gives them a bit less time, so they're going to have to shorten up swings, make them nice and compact, and they won't be able to take full cracks at the ball like they can on some of the other surfaces.
And what about serve and volley and Jack? Do you think that'll come into play more this year because of the conditions, or not?
Very possible, yeah. Remains to be seen, I think, just yet how well people are going to be able to return. But I think that will play a large part in it. If people can get rackets over the ball, so blocking returns rather than chipping them. If people can get blocks in, like sometimes they can on grass, it's still going to be difficult to serve and volley. But I think generally, with the conditions, it's going to make serve and volleying quite effective.
Yeah. And just while we're on the subject, the new roof has gone on to Court 1 at Wimbledon this year, and that changes the way that the court plays as well. You may well have already read that, again, somebody like Federer likes those conditions because the court gets faster. So that'll be interesting if, because of the weather that we're getting, if we get more rain breaks, the roof will go on both courts, and that may have quite an impact on who gets through.
So with all that said, who do we think is looking good for the big tournaments for Wimbledon this year? A couple of guys doing well. Dan Evans, you said already.
I think I think Dan's going to be quite a dangerous floater. He's not high enough ranked to be seeded. He's going to be around 62, 63 in the world next week. So he's not going to get a seeding position, but he could be very dangerous to some of the guys that will be seeded. So it just fingers crossed for him that he gets a good draw, because as I say, I do think these conditions might really help him to progress. I think it's very difficult to look past Roger. With the conditions, I think will slightly favour him. But what about the ladies? We haven't talked about them either. Any thoughts on that?
I always think Kvitova is dangerous. I don't know as much about her health at the moment. On the ladies' side, Donna Vekic just had a really good week in Nottingham. Having said that, they actually didn't play on the grass very much. So I think it's a little bit up in the air. Serena could pull some good tennis out. Jo Konta's playing really well, had a good win yesterday in straight sets. So it's difficult to say really who's even favourite for Wimbledon. Yeah,
well, the ladies' draw is wide open. You can see that from the number of different winners that we've had in the major championships in the last 3 or 4 years,
and especially this year as well. One of the stats on both the ATP and WTA sides, I can't remember, maybe the first 15 tournaments all had different winners on both sides, and so it's going to be quite interesting going into Wimbledon with that. There could be some old favourites looking good there. I think Federer will be effective. I think Djokovic actually will be effective. It might give him that extra bit of help on the serve, and his returning is so good that he might get more of a sniff on returning games than others might, but you never know. There are some strange things that can happen at Wimbledon on the grass courts. A lot of early exits, and starting to happen at Queen's and through last week as well, a couple of small upsets, so you never know.
Yeah, I think that will happen. So anyway, I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight into what to look out for maybe, and tune in next time.
Please leave any comments in the comment section, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Please tell us more of the sort of content that you would like to see if you enjoyed this video, and please add your thoughts as well onto what we've been talking about. We'd love to hear what you think as well. So see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.